The movie starts in space, where the starship Avalon is on autopilot and going to the colony world of Homestead 2. This is happening at the same time that a lot of people are leaving Earth. During the 120-year trip, the crew and the 5,000 guests will all sleep in pods. It has been 30 years so far. The ship goes through a storm of meteors, and power is sent to the front shields. Then, the ship hits a big meteor, and the power blinks and red alert screens come on in the control room, but everything goes back to normal quickly. There's been a bad thing. Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer played by Chris Pratt, wakes up in his pod to hear a cheerful computer voice tell him that they will soon be at Homestead 2. He is told that it is normal to feel weak and confused after hibernating. His wristband is scanned, and the machine tells him how to get to his sleeping cabin. He goes to an introduction about life as a colonist on Homestead, but he is the only one there. The next morning, he wakes up and tries to figure out what to wear when he meets other people. He then goes to a cafeteria where he is the only one. The happy computer-made teacher doesn't understand why he wants to know why there's no one else there. Jim goes to the main concourse, but the information booth can't help him. He is by himself. Jim finds the instructions for everything on the ship. He can't get into the area with the crew pods to try to wake someone up to get help, and he also can't get into the area where the crew is in charge. His tag does not let him go where he needs to go. He finds an office where he can send a message to the Homestead company, but he is told that it will cost a lot. He sends a message saying he is the only one awake and needs help. Then he finds out that no one on Earth will get his message for 15 years. Jim finds an android bartender named Arthur, played by Michael Sheen, who he can talk to. He looks at the instructions for the sleep pods, but he can't figure out how to get it going again after the person has woken up. The android is programmed to give bartender tips, like if you don't like where you are, change it. Jim is a general class passenger with a simple cabin, and he sneaks into a suite with better amenities. A year goes by, and Jim uses the ship's entertainment options, but since he has no one else to talk to, he grows more and more lonely. He goes to a place where people can put on a space suit and go outside while still being safe because they are still attached to the ship. Jim thinks about killing himself by opening the airlock without a spacesuit, but he stops and runs to the pod room instead. He trips near a pod with Aurora Lane, Jennifer Lawrence, a beautiful woman, inside. He looks at the information she wrote down about each traveler before the ship left port. She is a journalist, and she is going to Homestead to have an adventure and find out why people choose to be colonists. He reads her stories and thinks she's perfect. He has trouble deciding whether or not to wake her up. He knows that if he does, she will die on the ship, but he can't stand being alone for another year, so he wakes her up by hand, hiding so she doesn't see him. Aurora is woken up by the same happy computer program that takes her to her cabin to sleep. The next day, Aurora wakes up alone and goes to the main area of the airport, where she meets Jim. He tells her the truth about how long he's been awake, but he doesn't tell her that he woke her up. He has asked Arthur, the robot bartender, not to tell Aurora what he has done, and Arthur has agreed. Aurora and Jim talk every day and talk about what they can do to fix the pods. Aurora swims, runs, and starts writing the story she wants to tell. She asks Jim why he left Earth, and he tells her that he likes to make things and fix things, but on Earth, broken things are just replaced. He wants to build his own house and live in it. She planned to go to the colony, stay there for a year, and talk to the people there about why they left Earth. Then she would go back to Earth. Aurora is a gold-class guest, and she uses that to get him fancier breakfasts than he would get with his regular clearance. After getting to know each other for a while, Jim asks Aurora out on a date, which she agrees to. After they eat, he takes her to the room with the two spacesuits. There, they both put on a suit and then go outside. Aurora is happy when they get back inside, and they go to Jim's shack to make love. They are happy and have a pattern of working out, looking at the stars, and using the ship's restaurants and entertainment options. A year goes by, and Aurora's birthday comes around again. Jim plans a special treat for her, and he makes her a ring. Aurora tells Arthur that she and Jim don't keep any secrets from each other. Jim agrees, but he doesn't realize that Arthur thinks this means that Jim has told Aurora that he woke her up. Arthur tells Aurora that Jim picked a good person to wake up when he went into the men's room. Aurora is heartbroken and angry, and she tells Jim to stay away from her. One night, while he is sleeping, she goes into his cabin and hits him with her hands. Jim tries to explain himself over the ship's radio while Aurora is running away, but Aurora screams that Jim killed her. While all of this is going on, system breakdown alerts are coming into the control room more and more often. Jim and Aurora have noticed little things, like how the robots that clean have system problems. It's already been 2 years since the meteor hit. One day, Gus Mancuso, Lawrence Fishburne, A deck crew chief who got up early, shows up on the walkway. He says that hibernation pods have never failed before, so something big must be wrong. His wristband lets them into the command center, where they find that the ship's automatic diagnostics have stopped working and they need to check every deck by hand. Gus finds that there have been a series of failures, and the computer can make a chart that shows the first failure happened 2 years ago. Before Gus can do this, there is a big problem with gravity, and Aurora almost drowns in the pool while she is swimming. Gus figures out that when the first few failures happened, the power was switched to try to even out the load, but the load got too heavy and caused more and more failures. The ship as a whole is in danger of dying in space, which would kill everyone on board. The main engine area was the first to be damaged. But they will have to do a manual inspection to find out where. Gus passes out at this point, so Jim and Aurora take him to the hospital and put him in the auto-diagnostic machine. Necrosis is happening all over his body, and he will die soon because his sleep pod is broken. He puts on his outfit and gets ready to die. He gives Jim and Aurora his wristband so they can get into the parts of the ship where they need to go to fix things. Jim and Aurora are working on engineering when they find a hole made by a rock that goes through some important places. When they open one door, Aurora is almost pulled out through a hole in the ship when they open that door. She stops it with a tablet that Jim gives her, and Jim seals the hole with a liquid sealant. The area gets too crowded, and they find out that the smoke from the fusion engine has to be let out by hand. Jim has to put on a spacesuit and go outside to fix the manual workaround because it won't work. He has to go into the exhaust pipe to open a flap, but it won't stay open unless Jim holds it open so that the manual vent will work. Aurora is now so afraid of losing Jim that she fights with him over the radio, but she still pulls the lever. Jim is pushed out, his leash breaks, and his suit gets ripped. He tells Aurora he is leaving. She runs to get herself into a space suit and go find him. She gets Jim back by pulling on his leash, but when they get inside, he doesn't move. She drags him to the hospital, where an auto doctor tells her that Jim is dead. Aurora uses Gus's wristband and his bypass code to get the machine to revive Jim, and it works. She is glad and happy to hear that he is still alive. Things get back to normal on the ship after a while. Jim works on the auto dock and tells Aurora that he found that he could put her back to sleep in the hospital by using the command override, but then he would be alone again. Aurora decides to stay awake with Jim because she knows she will never see him again. Together, they will make a life on the ship. He gives her the ring he made earlier as a fake engagement ring, which she accepts. After 88 years. It's the end of the trip, and the captain and crew wake up on the Grand Concourse to find a big tree, lots of vines and plants, flying birds, and a cabin that might have Jim and Aurora's grandkids in it. Aurora's voiceover is telling the other people on board her story and telling them how they lived well where they were. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like, share and subscribe button to my channel to see more videos like this.